So, things have been a bit quiet on this channel for a bit. Various things happened in my life and I stopped making videos for a while. I do have a new analysis video in the works on the original Alien that I had hoped to have out before Alien Romulus released. But those videos take ages to do, and since I've now seen Romulus, I wanted to get my thoughts down and kickstart a new shorter form review content for films that have just released or may not get the analysis treatment yet. I'll keep it spoiler free for the main review of the film before diving into spoilers in the second half of the video, and don't worry, you'll get fair warning before we get there if you haven't had a chance to see the film yet. So, without further ado, let's get started.
Is this really where you want to spend the rest of your life?
You know I don't.
Directed by Fede Alvarez, Alien Romulus takes place a few decades after the events of the very first Alien, where a group of young, disgruntled miners working under the Weyland-Yutani Corporation attempt to salvage technology from an abandoned research station in orbit around their planet, so that they can escape from the company and make a new life on a new system out of reach of the Weyland-Yutani Corporation. Once on board, they discover not all is as it seems, and also that they're not alone. And cue Xenomorphs. I've been a fan of the Alien franchise since I was a child and saw Aliens way before I probably should have. I've seen Alien Romulus twice now. Once on Friday night with my girlfriend, and again on Monday night with a friend. I've had enough time to think it over and also make sure that I'm giving the film the best shot I can and keep everything in good faith. Having said that, if I were to sum up the film in one word, it would be the main word in my head after the first viewing: frustration. Alien Romulus has some great ideas, but they get bogged down under the countless callbacks and references to previous films. I'll start with the positives. The film starts off fantastic, and I love the first act and pretty much the first half of the film. There's some great world building and additions to the xenomorph biology, and we even learn new things about them. The special effects are great, with one glaring exception that I'll get into later. There's a lot of practical effects on display here, and they look phenomenal. The sound design is great too. The cinematography and the acting are on point. David Johnson is a standout as this film's synthetic Andy. Without giving too much away, he does a great job of showing the innocence of this character and then a darker side later on. He deserves all the praise that he's getting online for his performance in this film. Unfortunately, all of this goodwill feels squandered in the second half of the film, which just becomes one reference and callback to the previous films after another. I'm not talking about one or two little references. I'm meaning literally reusing lines, recreating scenes and shots verbatim. There's some great ideas in Romulus, and when it gets to be itself, these shine through. Unfortunately, the second half of the film becomes so bogged down with just trying to recreate scenes and lines from the previous films, it doesn't get the chance to stand on its own. Callbacks and references are great when they're subtle. The problem here is that all subtlety is thrown out into space and you're literally beaten over the head with references that scream, "Hey, remember this bit? Yeah, that bit in Aliens was good, wasn't it?" The problem with these kinds of callbacks is that when you're too preoccupied with referencing what came before, you're not creating anything new that future generations of filmmakers will want to reference, hopefully more subtly. I tried to stay with the film as they mounted, shrugging them off or saying, yeah, that kind of makes sense, and then they just kept on going to the point where there wasn't any sense or reason for these references to be stated. It's such a shame, because like I said, I love the first half of the film. I think it's fantastic. But the second half suffers because of this. The characters get a great setup, but with the exception of Andy, the others, including the lead character Rain, end up feeling underdeveloped. The pacing of the second half as well feels rushed. After such a good first half of the film, it feels like they're just running to get to the finale. While there's a lot of good screen time and development of the xenomorph species, and their presence is felt, the actual full-grown adult xenomorph gets very little screen time, and it feels like it got a bit shortchanged. Yes, the alien had very little screen time in the original film, but the pacing of the second half worked better. And to be fair, there was only one xenomorph to focus on, so it wasn't really taken away from. But here, it feels like we get very little adult xenomorph in this movie. And that's a shame. Overall, it feels like a greatest hits of the Alien franchise, but with none of the hits landing like they used to, and nothing new brought to the table that will be a future hit. Alien Romulus is not a bad film, not by any stretch, but it is a frustrating film, for me personally at least. I saw so much potential and I loved the original ideas, but it gets held back by gratuitous references and callback that stop it from being its own film. It feels like we're living through the era of fan service and pastiche, where whenever a movie franchise receives a soft reboot, so to speak, we have to continuously be reminded of the original film at every opportunity, as if we've forgotten all about it. I don't know if this was a deliberate choice on Alvarez's part or if there was some studio meddling. Making any film isn't easy and certainly not a big studio blockbuster, so although I may seem harsh on the film, I'm genuinely wishing it the best. No one here is a hack or poor writers. They've just made some questionable choices that affect the enjoyment of the film for me. It seems to have had a great opening weekend from what I'm reading online, and people are raving about it, which is nice to see. I love this franchise and want to see more entries. I just hope we see more entries that do something different rather than remind you of what's already come before. I'd give Alien Romulus 3 stars out of 5. There's a great film in there, but it gets lost in all the fan service and references to previous entries. Okay, so now that the main review is out of the way, let's head into spoiler talk. So, here's your spoiler warning.
You want to break and steal highly regulated equipment.
This could be our only ticket out of here.
I'll start with the android in the room. The CGI resurrection of Ian Holm to play the android Rook posthumously. His family and estate signed off on it, so I won't get into the moral or ethical questions of bringing back another actor posthumously. I could live with Ash's likeness coming back as another science officer android. The Nostromo crew weren't aware of him, but maybe he's a new line of science officers wheeled out by Wei Yu right as they took off. Like I say, I could live with it. But the effects were, as they always are with these things, bad. The CGI, deepfake, uncanny valley still doesn't work. The first time, I watched his eyes mostly, and it seemed okay-ish. The second time, I watched his mouth, and I can definitely say that it is bad, constantly blurring, and takes away from the other effects in the film that look so good. They even trawl out the "you have my sympathies" line, which, like the rest of the line callbacks in the film, don't work in the context of this film. In the original film, Ash was telling the crew they had no chance of killing the Xeno after they overpowered him. Here, he's just sentencing 2 people to what he believes is death. It also didn't need to be Ian Holm as the android, aside from having that connection to Alien, which they already have, as it's the same goddamn alien from the first film that they find at the beginning. His character is a synthetic, already ripped in half because that's what happened to Bishop in Aliens. Remember Aliens? They even do the alien-free reconnection, which I was fine with, but it could literally have been any other actor playing the role of a Wei Yu synth officer. Hell, it could have been Michael Fassbender playing another David or Walter. The only reason it was Ian Holm was to pull on that nostalgia and go, hey, remember Ash? There's a line in Deadpool and Wolverine. This is also spoilers, but we're in spoiler talk, so I don't care. Where Deadpool tells him Disney will have him doing this until he's 90. I say that won't even be the end. There will be a deep-faked CGI Hugh Jackman playing Wolverine again long after he has left this mortal coil in about 50, 60 years or something. Again, unnecessary, but I could have lived with it. Line reuse and all if it had stopped there. But it didn't, and we get more lines from Andy near the end of the film that are ripped verbatim from Aliens. The busy little creatures, and of course...
Get away from her, you bitch!
The first one irritated me. The second one made me visibly cringe. Busy little creatures made sense from Burke's perspective because that was his character, and Ripley fighting the Queen Alien was literally mother v mother at that point. It was great. Here, it's said by Andy as he kills what I think is meant to be the main alien that bursts out of Navarro. In the film's defense, they do try to build up to this, which I noticed on the second viewing. Twice in the film, Bjorn calls Andy a bitch. The first time when he tans that cigarette or joint as they're taking off and he says, "That's how it's done, bitch." And you can see Andy processing this. Then, when he shocks him, he calls him a bitch again. So I can see that they laid some breadcrumbs for the line coming back with Andy. Does this absolve its use? No. It's completely egregious. They should have just kept it at "get away from her" if they were going to do it at all. Yes, those lines are memorable and iconic, but I ask you this, are there any lines in Alien Romulus that will live on like that? No, because whenever they had the chance to do anything like that for themselves, they just repurposed a line from the original films instead. There's a few other repurposed lines, like Andy saying he prefers the term artificial person, which, fine, maybe all androids do. And when Tyler gets hauled up into the ceiling and the Xenos charge at him, he yells, "Is that all you got?"
Come on, that's all you got! Is that all you fight, motherfucker?
By the time Rain gives her big send-off, which really doesn't make sense because who is it even recorded for? She's on the run from the company, and Ripley recorded the log after the Nostromo was destroyed for the company. I was just shaking my head, sad at all the missed opportunities for this film to make its own stamp. Oh, and she's literally in her undies and suits up because that's what Ripley did in the original film. Hey, remember that scene? I realise I've started with the negatives here, so let's go back to the stuff I did like. Like I say, I loved the world building in the first act. Seeing the colony and what life under the company is like, yes, give me more of that shit. Cornbread was in it, that's the world they live in, and I like that. Even that little up and down thingy was in it. I guess they're really popular in the future, whatever. Those references were fine. That's just background dressing. The phone from Alien Isolation as well. Yeah, sure, it's a piece of the world, and again, set dressing, and it's in the background. It's subtle. No one makes a reference about saving their progress or something on it, thank God. I love the screen time with the facehuggers, and the fact that we learn that they can track you through temperature. The sequence where they're trying to sneak past them and use the flare to distract them is brilliant and tense, and the film needed more of that. Like I said, when Romulus gets to be Romulus, it's fantastic. The facehuggers do feel slightly nerfed though. It always looked like it was a one-hit kill with them in the past, so to speak, and now the characters are batting them away and throwing them off. I know Ripley was able to hold one at bay for a bit in Aliens, before the others helped her, and in Resurrection she's like Alien Ripley, so okay, whatever. But here it's a bit like, oh no sir, thank you, not today please, go away. I liked seeing the cocoon stage of the alien life cycle. I always thought it was a bit like AVP2, where it's just constantly shedding its skin and growing bigger, but nope, now there's a cocoon stage that we've never seen before, and I like that because it's something we've never seen before. Also, the thing goes from embryo to birth to full grown in like 15 in-movie minutes. I don't think the film properly confirms it, but there's no queen because the facehuggers on the station were reverse engineered, I think, to extract the black goo, which is fine. I also didn't mind that in there, it's always been interesting to me, if not handled completely interestingly. At first, when the facehuggers pulled off Navarro's face, I thought the embryo was premature and that's why it burst out early, and that does sort of look like what happened. However, it's never confirmed. Maybe because they're not pure xenomorphs or something like that, that's why it grows really fast. Or maybe the long alien life cycle is just not a thing anymore. Honestly, I don't know. I actually thought the alien was using egg morphing to make more facehuggers, and that's why it grabbed the two bodies out of the ship, but that's never confirmed either because we need to do another Aliens reference instead. The blue mist is in it. Still not sure what it does. I guess it's not part of the engineer's ship tech now, or maybe it's some kind of alien alarm system for the hive, I don't know. The zero-G stuff was pretty cool. Again, anything original Romulus brought to the table, I was down with. That includes shooting the hell out of Xenomorphs. Yeah, we've seen that before, but let's put it in new locations and have new things around it, and that was fun. I liked the concept of the xeno-human engineer creature at the end, although obviously I was like, okay, this is the resurrection callback moment of the film. I even thought they were going to kill it in exactly the same way when she threw the acid on the blood and it started eating its way through the floor. I prefer this creature to the newborn, to be honest. I've always hated that thing. Anytime the movie got to be Alien Romulus and show us something new, I was like, yes. And then they backtracked by going, hey, remember the other movies, lol? Yeah, I do. Why not give me something to remember from you instead? It really sounds like I've been shitting on this film, and I'm really not. It's not a bad film. It's tense and there's plenty of good sequences in it. It's just all the blatant fan service holds it back from me from being the film that I know it can be. Fan service can work, but you have to have more. Unfortunately, this just didn't. Would I recommend it? Sure. Go see it if you want. Look at it as a love letter to the franchise, basically. Just know that it doesn't really transcend that and stays in that territory for the entirety of the film. It's not the worst Alien film, but it's certainly not the best either, though it keeps trying to remind you of them. Okay, so that's my review for Alien Romulus. Have you seen it? Do you agree with me? Did you like it? Let me know in the comments down below, and if you don't agree, feel free to nitpick the points I've made or tell me I don't understand movies or something, I don't know. Do you think I need to hand back my Alien fan card? Subscribe and like this for more film reviews and analyses, and I'll see you next time. This is Stumo, last survivor of something, signing off.